Since Fallout 3 Remaster is now an official thing, obviously there are going to be a lot of articles about the said remaster, but also things that happened in the past when the original Fallout 3 was made. And this is exactly one of those articles, and it says that Fallout 3 Remaster should fix major constraints of original. At least this is what former Bethesda dev is saying about the matter. And when you read through the article, I think his comments are interesting because they highlight something people often overlook. Fallout 3 wasn't really the game Bethesda wanted to ship, but it turned out that it was the best game they could ship on Xbox 360 and PS3 hardware. And it's clear that he is right about the technical constraints because back in 2008, Bethesda had to fight against incredibly limited hardware. We're talking about tiny memory budgets, around 512 megabytes shared RAM on consoles, low-resolution textures, strict limits on dynamic lights, aggressive object culling, and obviously small interior cells and loading screens everywhere. Naturally, developers weren't making artistic choices because they wanted to. They were making the compromises because they had to. And when the former Bethesda dev says that it's 100% not what we intended, that is actually true. And let's not kid ourselves. Every studio from that era probably has similar stories. Now, that being said, the next thing that you should probably think in your head is, well, if we don't have technical limitations, we can do whatever the hell we want. And that's kinda true, but only from a gameplay point of view. Allow me to explain what I have in mind. If Bethesda wants Fallout 3 Remaster to feel modern without turning it into Fallout 4 with Fallout 3 skin, there are quite a few mechanics worth borrowing. And again, let's not forget, modernize the friction but preserve the RPG. That's basically where I'm going with these gameplay things. For starters, number one is definitely better gunplay. I would say probably that's the number one priority. If you remember, or if you played Fallout 3 recently, Fallout 3's biggest mechanical weakness is how weapons feel. And then you jump into Fallout 4 and it's improved dramatically. So all these things that improved Fallout 4 should absolutely be in Fallout 3 Remaster. However, I wouldn't make Fallout 3's combat as heavily weapon-focused as Fallout 4. Fallout 3's RPG mechanics should remain important. So essentially, if we are living in the ideal world, it would be Fallout 4 shooting plus Fallout 3 RPG systems. Next up on the list is sprinting, and I would say this one is mandatory because Fallout 3 without sprinting feels painfully slow today. And since Fallout 4 introduced sprinting, there's really no reason the remaster shouldn't have it. And I would go even further and make sprinting interact with action points, because that would make action points a much more interesting resource instead of primarily being used for VATS. And speaking of VATS, number 3 on my list would be better VATS. Which doesn't mean that I would copy Fallout's 4 VATS completely. I would just improve it, adding stuff like ability to queue more actions, better damage calculation, better melee VATS, stuff like that. And perhaps an optional Fallout 4 style slow motion VATS mode for people who don't like completely freezing combat. I mean, they have the opportunity to take best of both worlds, so why not just do it? There are also other things that I'm interested, but I won't go into detail. For example, weapon modification. Then we have better crafting system, better inventory, and obviously better enemy AI. However, not all of the gameplay systems are amazing in Fallout 4. And for this one, I would be very cautious to implement in Fallout 3, and obviously, I'm talking about legendary weapons. I wouldn't simply copy Fallout 4's legendary system, because let's be honest, it's shit. That doesn't mean the concept is bad, but I wouldn't like to have the Fallout 4 legendary weapon lottery system. The best thing would be to discover the legendary affix or suffix or whatever, and then you have the ability to extract it. Obviously, with a huge amount of materials and whatnot, because again, when you want something that's deterministically and objectively better and does double, triple, even quadruple damage, well, you need to pay a price in order to enjoy what you already discovered. So yeah, legendary weapons and armor or whatever, that's all nice and fine, but let's not make it like it was in Fallout 4, please, for the love of God. I really hated that, and I really don't want to see it anymore. And again, we saw that in Starfield, and then they promptly changed it, so yeah, that tells you a lot why that system is bad. Now, there are some minor things that I would like to see, for example, better lockpicking, hacking, better character progression, better environmental interactions. You get the point. There are a lot of things that you can implement from Fallout 4 into Fallout 3 in order to make it an amazing game. But then we get to the second part of this argument. And that's basically my hope that Bethesda understands that removing technical limitations, or in this case adding new gameplay systems, shouldn't change Fallout 3's identity. A remaster shouldn't become brighter, more colorful, cluttered with unnecessary detail, and filled with modern gameplay systems that don't fit. Remember, Fallout 3 atmosphere works because it's bleak, lonely, and eerie. The Capital Wasteland has huge stretches of nothingness, and that's intentional. Wandering through destroyed highways with only ambient wind and distant radio static is part of what makes Fallout 3 memorable. And that's precisely why I actually disagree with our Bethesda dev here when he said that he would like to revisit Skyrim and add more color. Again, when you think about it, Skyrim's cold, desaturated look is part of its identity. If every region suddenly became vibrant and saturated, it would stop feeling like Skyrim. You want to improve textures and lighting? Sure, go ahead, absolutely. But changing the overall mood? Yeah, I wouldn't support that. 100% I would be against it. So to summarize, unlike a film remake where you're reinterpreting a finished work, a game remaster can finally realize ideas that were held back by hardware limitation. And that's a compelling reason to revisit a classic. The key, however, is remembering that technical constraints aren't the only reason people loved Fallout 3. The atmosphere, pacing, emptiness, and sense of isolation are just as important as sharper textures or better lighting. Hell, I would say I don't really care about graphics because I'm that type of a guy. I'm always interested about gameplay elements because yes, the game looks nice and fine, but what I'm doing in the game is what defines, for me at least, whether or not I'm going to have a good or a bad time. So if Bethesda modernizes the presentation while preserving those qualities, they could end up with something really special. However, since this is Bethesda we're talking about, do they have enough common sense to realize all these things? Well, I suppose we're going to find out when the game finally comes out. And that's basically my take on this news. Thanks very much for watching, and as always, like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And that's it from me, until the next one.